I just found the most amazing DIY trauma healing technique from the Lakota tribe. So I thought I'd share that today. And after we explore it and the science behind it, because John Hopkins studied it, we're going to go into a deeper dive into why grounding in nature is important, how it impacts your body, how the heart functions, and why all this works so well. So let's start with what the Lakota did and why it's making a resurgence today. I'm going to share my screen. So, oh, that's too, hang on a second. Let me adjust my screen. Okay, so Native Americans had a grief ritual, a way of processing their emotional pain from the 1400s, and it was studied by John Hopkins, as you can see on the screen, and they found out that it processed trauma, processed emotional pain 6 times faster than talk therapy. And a therapist association tried to discredit it. Okay, so let's look into what they do, what this research found, and then we're going to do a deep dive into why this works. We're going to learn about the heart and the soul and the nervous system and how it's all and nature and how it all functions together for our benefit. So the Lakota healers used it for those who lost loved ones or survived violence. The person didn't talk about the trauma, they fed it. What does that mean? They fed it. They fed it with love. They fed it with understanding. They fed it with grace. Okay? And you have to be coy with the heart, direct with the mind, coy with the heart. And we're going to learn why in a second, because the heart is a vortex and you can't command the heart. And the heart really regulates our nervous systems, not our brains. We're going to learn why in a second. So they gather stones representing the pain. So acknowledging I'm in pain. I am in pain. I need to process pain. And then connecting to nature, which we'll learn why it's so helpful. They carry them to the river because the river is like a symbolic of emotions. You know, like I'm a Cancer sign, the cardinal water sign, emotion, water, tears, right? Tears is a sign of emotional release. It's healthy. So they carried it in the river and released them one by one while speaking the memory out loud to the water. So they speak as a way of sharing their heart, connecting to themselves, not asking someone in talk therapy to to command them into what's going on. This is a person who's being guided how to connect more deeply to themselves, how to love the parts of themselves that are experiencing pain. This teaches people how to surf the waves of life, which is in my free ebook below. It really does. It teaches them to go into their pain and come out of their pain. And this is fluctuating energy. This keeps us alive. Our energy has to move to be alive. And we're going to learn why in a second. Okay. So the final stone was kept as a reminder that grief was witnessed, not erased. We don't forget our loved ones who's passed. We don't forget the violence that we receive, and we shouldn't, because that's how we learn. That's how we learn to process our pain. It's a learning process. It's not wrong, it's learning. So the practice was banned by missionaries in the 1800s as primitive superstition. Okay, so why would missionaries have an outside-in perspective instead of an inside-out perspective? So missionaries had an external locus of power. God says, God commands. You go to God for forgiveness. You go outside of yourself for forgiveness. There's no inner authority there. There's no accountability there. It's all, well, God, 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 and I'm here. There's no processing. There's just suppression. And we all know what happens when we suppress our emotional pain. There's the anxiety, there's the depression. And I'm going to quote Dr. Gabor Mate here, who said that when one doesn't say, is unable to say no to support themselves physiologically, the body will say no for them in the form of disease like cancer. He's a family medicine practitioner who specializes in how childhood trauma impacts adults. So he knows a lot about this. But in 2019, Johns Hopkins trauma researchers recreated it with PTSD patients. So let's see what they found. If I can get this to scroll down. I'm not the best at, oh, here we go. Okay. All right. Okay, let's keep going. They found the physical act of releasing objects while verbalizing trauma. So you're engaging both sides of the brain. This is really important. Communication is feminine, action is masculine. They're engaging the whole self. Both hemispheres of the brain, something talk therapy alone doesn't achieve. Talk therapy is just communication. There's no action. So it's not both sides of the brain. It's not the whole being. Results after 6 sessions. PTSD symptoms reduction, 73%. Intrusive thoughts decreased by 81%. Emotional regulation improved 6 times faster than traditional therapy because both sides of the brain are being used and they're connecting to nature. Talking to a therapist who has no connection to the trauma, that doesn't help people very much. As we see, we have a current mental health crisis, and how many therapists are out there? How many psychologists are out there? We're inundated. But it's not working, and this is why. The protocol: gather small objects. Each object represents one painful memory or feeling. So you are acknowledging I'm in pain, and this represents this, and this represents this. And now we're going to deal with it. Go into a natural setting. I mean, this is something modern society doesn't do. We're so the more disconnected we come from nature, the more ideologically progressive we become. Look at New York and LA. Very progressive ideologically, but a lot of mental health problems. A lot of mental health problems. So hold each object, speak the memory out loud, release it physically, throw it, bury it, burn it, keep one object as a witness. The act of physical release signals to the brain that the memory has been processed. Okay, it signals to the nervous system. Okay, I'm going to say the nervous system, which is controlled by the heart, which was news to me, but I'm going to share this amazing video in a minute that to teach you that it's really the heart that controls the nervous system, which makes sense. Okay, it really makes sense because our energy bodies or our souls communicate out through our hearts. And our heart is a vortex. So therapy organizations pushed back hard. One psychologist association called it unscientific and potentially harmful. How is it? I'm not even going to go there. It's so crazy. But the data showed otherwise. The modern therapy model profits from long-term treatment. I mean, that exactly. I've been on so many podcasts in the past year with therapists who cut me off because I might trigger one of their clients, and then they're going to lose clients. Well, that's counterproductive. The triggering of the emotional pain to the surface is necessary for release. I was, maybe see, therapy is a problem. Therapy is a problem. A ritual that works in 6 sessions disrupts a multi-billion-dollar industry, trillion-dollar global industry. Try it with one painful memory. Lakota healer said, the wound that's held grows. And we know that when we hold on to our pain. I mean, I had 35 years of debilitating lower back pain screaming at me because I didn't know how to listen to my body. No one ever taught me how to listen to my body, that my body has knowledge that's important information for me. No one taught me that. So I repressed and I minimized and I people pleased and I tried to act like people wanted me. I was not authentic to myself. Okay. But now then they say the wound that's released heals. I spent the last 10 years releasing my wounds, turning my wounds into wisdom, learning to surf the waves of life. Finally, I started learning that at 45 years old. Most people still carrying stones from decades ago. I was, okay, in my uterus for sure. So let me stop the sharing and we're going to go and learn. This was amazing when I found this video about why the heart is a vortex, how blood flows without the heart in a fetus in a spiral. So the energy flows in a spiral. So the heart isn't really pumping the blood, which is based on laws of physics, impossible for this one muscle to push blood through the whole body. It's based on laws of physics. It's impossible. But that's what we're taught because it's an outside-in control mechanism as opposed to an inside-out. Okay. God's the authority. It's like that's our worldview, the Christian worldview, the Jewish worldview. That's an outside in. That's control. That's the lie. That's the matrix. We're inside out. And let's learn why. I'm going to bring up a slide here. I'm going to share a deck that I'm creating for my webinar, but I'll just share a couple of the slides. And I have to present it to be able to show you nicely. So let's look at the left here, the laws of physics, the map of consciousness, and our emotions. So the map of conscious levels describes how our emotions, starting at shame here at 20 hertz, all these numbers on the left is the hertz that each emotion is expressed. So our souls, and so through this work and through other laws of physics work and the hearts of vortex work, we've learned that each human has its own energy body. I'll call it a soul. Okay, each human has its own soul, and souls communicate via emotions, which makes sense that the soul communicates out the heart. And that's what they've proven, that all of our souls are connected through our hearts. And that's how we communicate as souls. Like you've seen so many dog videos of the dog gets super excited 1 or 2 minutes before the owner comes home. Well, how does the dog know? And it could be a different time every day. I mean, the dog doesn't have a watch, you know? But it's this internal communication. I mean, why does the bear in Florida know to climb a tree 24 hours before a Category 5 hurricane hits, but humans don't know that and stay in their homes on the water like, bring it? What? Internal guidance. They know to listen to themselves. They have an internal source of authority. So I need to go up the tree. Oh, the storm's coming. Oh, okay, yeah, makes sense. But the Christian worldview doesn't teach that. It's an external locus of power, and that's the challenge. It's like they want a psychologist to decide what the person needs to do, cutting off internal authority, which is rampant in Christianity. I mean, that's why we burn women at the stake, because they were saying that their intuition gave them access to God. Well, the Christian church couldn't have that because access to God came through the church and not at home. I mean, that was how they controlled people. I mean, that was one of the main things in the Crusades and the Inquisition. Spanish Inquisition killed millions of people, especially in France. You know, this is the challenge, this is the fight, okay? And Native Americans knew how to process their emotional pain. They knew how to be in healthy connection to themselves and with the animals, and we can learn a lot from that. So our souls communicate via emotions out through our heart, and it surprised me that enlightenment is an emotion, but it is. I learned that after I experienced enlightenment for the first time in March of 2024. And I have a master's degree in East Asian religious studies. I lived in Chinese Buddhist monasteries, and I never learned it. I don't know that they don't teach it. I'm just saying I never learned it in school, and I never learned it there. So this is how our souls communicate out through our hearts. So now let's learn why, I'll stop sharing this. Let's learn why the heart is a vortex and how that functions in terms of healing trauma and connecting to nature, and why this is also important.
Let me just read this because I think it's actually probably one of the best descriptions of the heart that I've ever run across. They taught you the heart was just a glorified meat pump, that it squeezes and pushes blood like some crude mechanical device, a hydraulic engine made of flesh. That is what they want you to believe, because if you buy into that primitive lie, you never ask deeper questions. But it is false. It has always been false. And the real science proves it. Dr. Francesco Tornquas, a Spanish...
Right, the heart pumping outside in worldview. Heart's a vortex, that's inside out worldview. And we live in a holographic universe. I'm going to quote Einstein and then Dr. Joe Dispenza. The field is a sole governing agency of the particle. The energy field, the energy body, the soul controls the particle. That's inside out, not outside in.
Cardiac researcher discovered what the textbooks refused to acknowledge, that the heart is not a pump. He dissected thousands of hearts and found that the heart is a single continuous muscle band folded into a spiral. He proved that the heart works like a vortex generator, creating suction and torque, not pressure. He called it the helical ventricular myocardial band, and it changes everything. The real movement of the blood comes from pressure differentials, electromagnetic flow, and coherent resonance.
The field is the sole governing agency of the particle, proven by blood flow in fetuses.
The blood spirals naturally. It need not be forced through miles of arteries and capillaries. The so-called pump is not strong enough to push thick fluid through 60,000 miles of tubing. That is basic physics. That lie was dead on arrival. Here is the truth. Blood moves before the heart forms in the embryo. That is, by the way, a documented fact. It flows via frequency, resonance, and electric charge.
I mean, Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets to the universe, think in terms of frequency, energy, and vibration, and how blood flows in fetuses proved his point.
The body is a field, not a factory. Your heart creates a toroidal electromagnetic field that radiates 6 meters from the body.
This is what I'm talking about, the energy body, the soul, okay? This is the proof.
This field syncs with the earth, the sun, and every living being around you.
So we don't acknowledge that we have this soul that's constantly in sync with the sun, the earth, everything around us, then we're not in relationship with the things around us. Then we don't find them important. So we'll go live in a city and never go out in nature. Or we'll engage in manifest destiny, killing 60 million buffalo in order to kill the Native Americans and kill all the beavers in order to make hats. Oh, let's kill the wolves because they're inconvenient for our cattle ranchers. Oh, let's make dams and rivers where the salmon flow. And that was because God gave us dominion over everything. That's a belief, not a reality. This is reality. Reality is we're in relationship with everything else in nature. And this is what the Native Americans knew. They knew this. That's why they worked with the buffalo to help their herd survive, because they helped them survive. And they learned from the buffaloes. They do the buffalo dances. This is the Lakota tribe. Okay? So, but Western thinking is, top down, outside in, not inside out. And when we're in relationship with the animals, then we can start to ask questions like, what were the negative downstream impacts of killing all these animals? Oh, there's the flooding because the beavers built dams and created waterways to stop massive amounts of water going downhill. When the earth is dry, the water just goes right over it. When the earth is wet, then it can absorb. Like a slightly wet sponge absorbs water much faster than a dry sponge. It's just the way it is. So it stops flooding, and then all that excess groundwater, that stops drought, stops wildfires. And then when you have the wolves corralling all the animals in the right places, it stops them from killing all the trees. Well, the trees stabilize the ground. When the ground is stable, the roads are stable. What they found is when they returned wolves to Yellowstone in the 90s, saved $93 billion ecologically. Did you know that salmon are a keystone species and that their ability to go all the way up these rivers and tributaries far into the forest and bring all the nutrients from the ocean is key to stopping wildfires? But we built dams because we wanted the short-term energy and, F the fish. There's plenty of fish, right? There's just plenty. Short-term thinking, outside-in thinking, not we're in relationship, not, let's ask the Native Americans because they've been living here so long how they've been successful. No, we know we're right, you're wrong. And we just saw that in the way they treated the Lakota tribe. I mean, they had a valid way to process their trauma. No, you need to do it our way. Christianity. We're taking your kids, we're putting them in schools, and we're killing you. This is Christianity, love thy enemy? They don't know how to love thyself. When you know how to love thyself and accept thyself, then you'll understand that you're a soul having a human experience, and that we're all connected. That you have to be in relationship with everybody.
It is a resonator, a tuner, a conductor. It aligns the rhythm of your cells. It feels, it remembers, it emits, and it responds to emotion, thought, light, sound, and breath. When you feel love, grief, fear, or peace, your heart transmits it. It is the central frequency modulator of your biology, not a pump. And the institutions know this. The Heart Math Institute has measured these fields for decades. They know the heart has more neuronal cells than parts of the brain. They know it is a second brain.
It's not, I wouldn't even call it a second brain, because the neurological structure in the heart is far more complex than the brain. And the heart sends far more signals to the brain than the other way around. I mean, the brain releases the chemicals, and it's like it's the kind of, I don't even know how to say that properly, but it's where all the hormones are released. But where does that direction come from? The heart. And who's in control of the heart? The soul. So if we don't think about what, things at a soul level, right? Like, how do we turn our wounds into wisdom at a soul level? Our subconscious, that's a soul. Then we can't change our neurological structure. And recalibrating our nervous systems for love, compassion, and enlightenment instead of fear, guilt, and shame is the trauma healing process. When we repress everything, control everything, then we hold on to our fear, guilt, and shame, which the Native Americans knew wasn't healthy for us. But when we have an internal locus of control and we feel our feelings, okay, I don't want to sit in this fear, guilt, and shame. I want to figure this out. And Lakota tribe had a great, let's go in nature and figure this out. It's a whole different worldview. It's like flipping everything on its head. Where the Native Americans, the inside out is the wisdom, the outside in is the wound. That's the lie in the subconscious. That's the external control mechanism. And when we're busy controlling our emotions, we project that externally as control. The universe is a mirror showing us ourselves in every moment as a constant feedback loop for self-improvement. So when I see selfishness outside of myself, that is my soul showing me the selfishness inside of myself. And that's all based on the laws of physics too. But this is an inside-out technique. Okay? With a vortex, you cannot command a vortex. You have to input energy like koi, right? Direct with the mind, koi with the heart. That's why women are koi. It just comes out of us naturally. That's the way we open our heart. Like, okay, let me put something in there. Let's see what comes out.
They know coherence in the heart transforms the entire nervous system.
That is healing. That's healing. When my nervous system was calibrated for fear, guilt, and shame until the past 10 years. And now I experience enlightenment all the time because I learned to surf the waves of life. I learned to go into my emotional pain and come out. And I really had to accept that life is like jumping on a trampoline. The deeper I go, the higher I fly, with enlightenment being high flying, okay? But I had to go super deep first to grab the kinetic energy and the propulsion necessary to catapult me that high inside of my own emotional range. But when our emotional range stops at fear, guilt, and shame, that's not an emotionally mature human being. That's an immature human being who's probably quite destructive. Oh, manifest destiny. Oh, Spanish Inquisition. Oh, Jesus, let's crucify him on the stake.
So why are they still teaching children a 400-year-old guess from William Harvey that has never been updated?
And I would say I answer that question when that's the Christian worldview. And, telling people that, inner sovereignty, that you have sovereignty over your own soul and you don't need Jesus or God to forgive you. That's just they just lose control completely. Okay. Okay, but how can you take control back over your life? And let's get into a short video that I have about why going into nature facilitates this process of recalibrating your nervous system, via your heart, through your, for your soul, through your heart, right? So from fear, guilt, and shame to love, compassion, and enlightenment, as we saw, the love, compassion, and enlightenment are much higher vibrating energies, emotions. And the highest vibrating energy is the most powerful, the most transformative. So let's pull up the grounding video and check that out and learn from that.
How does grounding work? Well, the answer lies in the Earth's electrical charge. The Earth's surface is rich in free electrons and acts as an antioxidant.
That's why it's important to walk barefoot in nature. So Native Americans wore leather, if they pour anything on like leather, like moccasins, because everything they can benefit from the ground up through their bodies. That's why in Japan, they do so much work on taking the toxins out of their feet, because that's where the toxins come out. So if you can put them back into the earth and the earth helps you heal, like there's the flow of energy.
Neutralizing free radicals in the body, reducing inflammation, and restoring equilibrium. So when your skin makes direct contact with the earth, electrons flow freely, counteracting any harmful electric charges, such as free radicals in your cells. How does grounding work?
Okay, so that's a short introduction. And you can definitely, do a deeper dive on your own to learn more. But, hugging a tree, going out in nature, taking a deep breath in. I mean, going amongst tons of trees, taking a deep breath in opens your heart. And when your heart is open, then you have an opportunity for new input, new love, new compassion, new enlightenment. But when your heart's closed and you're repressing your emotions, there's no opportunity to change because you're very busy being right. A lot of people get really busy being right. But what I notice is when someone's really busy being right, they don't take time to self-reflect. And that was me. I never learned to self-reflect. My parents didn't know how, and I didn't learn how until the last 10 years. And self-reflection is feminine. Now, I love Carl Jung. I just love Carl Jung. And he was a huge proponent of people being in nature. And he and Albert Einstein were close. So, of course, that works for me too. So let me pull up. I did some chat GBT talking and had some great information about why nature is so important from Carl Jung's perspective. Okay, so it says that nature therapy isn't just calming or restorative. It is psychologically necessary for modern people. Jung believed prolonged separation from nature destabilizes the psyche and weakens individuation. Individuation is the natural process a child in a healthy family goes through to become a mature adult. They learn how to surf the waves of life. They know that self-love, their own authenticity, is most important. And they don't put themselves, beneath other people. But when the parents are unaware and the parents haven't healed from their trauma, they're busy controlling their own pain. So what gets projected out of them is control. And then the child is, looking up to the parent going, oh, this is how we do life. So then they internalize that. So when children internalize the parents' psychological problems, then there's generational trauma. And right now we see a lot of people in cities not connected to nature. And it's the people in the cities who are very, pro-trans, I wasn't born into the right body. My soul doesn't know what it was doing. Now I need surgery and medication for life to be the person that I was born to be. That's external, internal, not internal, external. If that were true, we wouldn't have had surgery until the past couple hundred years, right? It's very hard for me. Trans is very hard for me. So Jung held that the human psyche is not isolated inside the skull. As we saw, the psyche, our energy fields are, 6 meters out from us. Okay. So archetypes emerge from humanity's long relationship with nature. Symbols, instincts, meaning are rooted in natural patterns. Modern life cuts people off from these regulating forces, right? Like how many people walk barefoot in nature? We just showed how beneficial it is to the body. Reduces stress, cortisol, opens the heart, helps the nervous system heal, recalibrate. That's all really healthy. Why aren't we doing that? Outside in. Jung warned that modern humans suffer from ego inflation, over-identification with intellect. So people have been taught like the brain is over the heart, right? Because the brain is more masculine, logic, thinking, right? The brain is the control center, is what most of us have been taught. But if you teach the heart is the control center, and the heart is with emotions, that's women. Now, I'm not advocating for women to be in control because I don't want to lead. I'm feminine. I create, I self-reflect, I'm intuitive, I forgive, I do all that inside work, which Native Americans knew. My book is dedicated to a Cherokee proverb where they said, a woman's highest calling is to connect a man to his soul so he can unite with source, where a man's highest calling is to protect a woman so she can walk the earth unharmed. He does the outside work, she does the inside work, but both are driven by internal authority, not external authority. So they believe, in total control, manifest destiny. Humans are in charge and we kill what we need to, But as we saw, we got rid of the buffalo, all of our grasslands disappeared. Got rid of the wolves, Yellowstone went down the drain. Got rid of the beavers, flooding, drought, and wildfires. Okay, so when we restore these keystone species, then we have ecological revival and we have climate resilience. But we did this to ourselves. Dominance over humility, right? Humility is, I'm in relationship with that buffalo. How can we get along? Dominance is, kill that motherfucker. Inconvenient. And they didn't even eat the meat. They just took the hide and left them. I mean, we've seen dances with wolves. Okay. So nature therapy connects this naturally. In nature, the ego is no longer central. Time slows, scale humbles, and control dissolves. I mean, I'm not in control of the middle of nature, right? So this kind of perceived control by building buildings and roads, and what happened in the tsunami in Japan over 10 years ago. Nature's in charge, okay? Nature restores the proper relationship between the ego and the self. This reduces anxiety, grandiosity, and compulsive control. Nature's extremely helpful. Let's keep going. The collective unconscious is closest to the surface in natural settings. So nature mirrors archetypes directly: tree, river, mountain, animal, fire. Symbols are experienced, not conceptualized. See, when we conceptualize, we spend all of our time in our brain, our heart closes down. And when our vortex closes down, then we're repressing ourselves. Nature, as we saw, helps open the heart, relieve information, heal the body. Get out of your head, into your heart, into nature. Psyche recognizes itself in natural form, meaning without explanation, like you don't have to talk. Insight without analysis, you're out of your head. Integration without effort. Dreams often deepen after time in nature. Jung noted this repeatedly. Nature integrates the shadow safely. When I say the shadow, that's our subconscious. Those are the parts of ourselves that are unrealized, the parts of ourselves that are lying to us. Like I had in my subconscious, fear all men. Well, that's fearing half the population. I mean, how much anxiety do you think I had? A lot, right? Depression, 4 to 7 migraines a week, tons of pain, tons of medications. I mean, I was a shit show. I also, in my subconscious, had a lie that I'm replaceable. No one's replaceable. But I'm replaceable meant I attracted in men who had multiple women who were, replacing me to show me myself. So nature provides a non-moralized container for shadow material, decay, death, danger, wilderness, unpredictability. And so we can see ourselves outside of ourselves, helping us to self-reflect. That's the DIY part of it. It helps you self-reflect. That's what my free ebook below will help you do, help you self-reflect. Instead of projecting shadow onto other people, politics, and enemies, we see that all day long, especially out of the cities. Especially out of the cities, because we are projecting our hearts. We live in a holographic universe. So what draws my perception and attention is all based on energetic resonance. So when I have selfishness at 20 hertz and selfishness in somebody else at 20 hertz, just an example, when this 20 hertz moves, this 20 hertz also moves based on the laws of physics. So it draws our perception. Rumi said, what you seek is seeking you. So when my attention turns to their 20%, their 20, hertz, when my 20 hertz moves towards them, then that's called a quantum entanglement. But if I don't have that 20 hertz, I'm not going to be attracted to their other 20 hertz because that's not showing me myself. Only things that will show me myself, what's good, where I need to improve, will draw my perception and attention. You ever notice that you see a movie with your best friend, you can come out with two completely different lessons or, perceptions of the movie? That's because what draws your attention is different from what draws your best friend's attention based on the wounds and the wisdom inside of their soul, based on how their soul is vibrating. When they saw the movie, were they vibrating with shame? Did they connect with shame in the movie? Or did they connect with compassion in the movie? Which part of themselves connected to the movie will determine the lessons learned. Inside out, not outside in. So nature allows shadow to be experienced symbolically, reducing destructive projection. So when things are symbolic, right, that's the heart, because it's not direct. You can't command a vortex, but you can feed it new information. Right? So nature provides a lot of really healthy information while at the same time naturally healing and the body and helping you let go of emotional pain. So nature restores instinct and embodiment. Embody yourself. People who don't embody themselves want to change their body. Trans is very hard for me. Modern life suppresses, I'm a mom and then we're with the trans kids, it's very hard for me. Modern life suppresses instinct, constant abstraction, mental, and you have women in the cities acting like men. So they aren't even connected to their femininity. That was the Industrial Revolution. We were putting mothers in the workforce, separating them from their babies, letting babies cry it out, putting them in daycare because we had placed money and convenience over health and well-being, and we're still fighting that battle right now. So screens, schedules, artificial light, noise. Jung believed instinct is not primitive. It is psychic intelligence, like the bears climbing the tree. The beavers building the dams. The beavers sustain 80% of wildlife with their dams. And they're not necessary? Oh, the hats are more important. I forgot. More important? Nature therapy restores rhythm, sensory awareness, bodily trust, intuition, self-regulation. It's embodiment. It's, you're not disconnected from your body, kind of trying to look back in, going, oh, that on me, It's lack of awareness. So, this supports nervous system balance and emotional resilience. When children live in a family with parents whose nervous systems are calibrated for love, compassion, and enlightenment, they have emotional resilience. They know how to surf the waves of life. But kids born into families that don't have that have a much bigger challenge. And that's why those souls take it on for the challenge. But this is how this works. Nature supports individuation. This is like Carl Jung, Dr. Gabor Mate, a healthy individual separate from the family, mature, capable of making healthy decisions. So individuation requires contact with the unconscious, symbolic experience, solitude, reflection, encounter with limits. Nature naturally provides all five. Jung himself built to live close to nature. He carved stones, chopped wood. Did you know that chopping wood is the most cortisol reducing, testosterone producing activity for a man? Right? Oh, we got saws for that now. We'll make it convenient for you. Yeah. Convenience a huge allure. He cooked simply. He lived rhythmically. He, built his own fire. He didn't have electricity. He didn't have running water. He just did it all himself. He embodied all of it. It was really healthy for it. He said this life brought him closer to his true self than intellectual work ever could. Because he got out of his head and into his heart, where the magic happens. So Jung believed many modern neuroses stem from loss of symbolic life, alienation from nature, over-civilization, repression of instinct. Oh, Western world. Nature therapy addresses the root, not just the symptoms. Like globally, nature therapy is being prescribed a lot now, and they see that it works far better than medication, because medication just suppresses the emotion. Again, external, internal. That's the problem. Nature is internal, external. The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it. Nature restores meaning, restores embodiment. Psychological benefits through a Jungian lens, right? Okay. So nature therapy supports anxiety reduction, depression relief, trauma healing, addiction recovery, identity repair. These are not secondary benefits. They are structural repairs. Change your nervous system. Recalibrate your nervous system. Nature therapy heals because it reconnects the ego with archetypal, what do they say? Archetypal reality. Dissolves ego inflation, restores instinctual intelligence, intuition, integrates the shadow symbolically, because the heart's a vortex, you can't command it, you have to give new information and let it see what comes out, and reorients the psyche towards the self rather than abstract control. I'm going to stop sharing this. I hope that I love this. This is so fascinating for me. I'm a total nerd, so I get into this, but I just love sharing more DIY trauma healing techniques because so many people are challenged by how to recalibrate their nervous system to love, compassion, and enlightenment instead of fear, guilt, and shame, which is the healing process. So I'm going to continue providing these. Please like and subscribe. I hope this was helpful. Take care. Bye.